Hello Exiles, and welcome to my leveling guide for Trickster or Assassin. In this guide, we'll quickly look at how to use Lightning Arrow in order to level up our Shadow character somewhere to around level 80. You can use this right up to level 84, up until the point where you can wear your endgame gear. So the cheap leveling uniques that we need for this build are Tabula and a couple of other items such as Roth's Reach, which will be a starting bow, and Death's Harp, which is a more advanced bow that you can use when you reach the right level. The same goes for the quiver, and the other uniques are just very cheap uniques that you can get for 1 or 2 chaos, and they will carry you through the acts. Now, in the leveling skill gems, you can see that we are using Lightning Arrow as well as some supports like I added lightning damage, lightning penetration and other things. We are going to use Mirage Archer, that is going to give us a little bit more damage. Now LMP, which is a multi-projectile skill, is used because the initial bow Roth's Reach and the quiver does not have any plus arrows to it. So we're going to use LMP to give us a few more arrows. Somewhere around Act 8, you can take a call on this. You'll get approximately plus 4 arrows from the skill tree and from the Death's Harp bow. So plus 4 arrows is the total additional arrows that you get, and because of that you don't need LMP. You can remove that and then you can directly use increase crit strikes and crit damage if you want to go crit, or if you want to go with a non-crit build, you can go with elemental focus or something like that. Now in terms of leveling skill gems, we have simply used Flame Dash and Second Wind, which is a very quick and easy leveling skill. For auras we have Precision, which improves our hit chance as well as gives us more critical strike. And for defense, you can link up CWDT and Immortal Call. If you don't know what CWDT is, it's a cast when damage taken, and it allows you to automatically execute Immortal Call whenever you take a certain amount of damage. For the flasks, we're going to be using a very simple flask setup. We have Granite and Jade, which are our defensive flasks. Diamond Flask gives you more crit, which is more damage. And Quicksilver can be used to help you boost your movement speed throughout the acts and complete the acts faster. So this is the first leveling skill tree. As you can see, we go downward, taking the dexterity path. We take some life, damage and more damage nodes. We are going to take the crit nodes because they're very close to the start of the skill tree. The second skill tree sees certain masteries that are being used. So we have things that help us do more damage. We have plus 1 arrow from the bottom wheel. And then we have certain leech nodes. So leech is a nice defensive mechanic which kind of carries us through the acts. And right on top, on the top right, we have taken more lightning damage with a lightning mastery. The third skill tree sees us get a little bit more defensive. We take all of the accuracy nodes so that we get more hit chance. We take plus 1 arrow and other things, and we also take spell suppression and resistance, which helps us carry through the acts. Now in terms of gear, right, we already covered that uniques will take you through most of the acts, which is true. However, somewhere around Act 9 or Act 10, you may notice your damage getting a little bit low. When this happens, it's because your gear is lacking. So what we can do is we can use, if you have a few chaos, you can use it to buy certain rare gear. So over here, I've included the search terms that you need to buy a very cheap rare bow, right? So highlighted in red, right, is the level requirement. So you can enter in your current level and it will only find gear that you can wield at that level, so that you don't find high level gear that you cannot wield yet, right? In yellow is the budget that you want. So if it's 10 chaos or 1 chaos or whatever, you can enter it over there. And in blue, I've highlighted the stats that you need to add into the search term. A plus 2 arrow bow is usually expensive. So over here, I've given you a plus 1 arrow bow, and then we just enter DPS as 700. And you can sort by DPS and try to buy the highest DPS bow. So this is a very cheap way to buy a bow that you can use for leveling. Now for buying a rare quiver, in the same way we enter our level requirement and budget, and then in blue I've highlighted all of the stats. I've added some of the stats that I feel will increase your damage. Okay. Now since we're using lightning arrow, lightning damage to attacks is the number 1 stat we need on a quiver, and all the others are secondary. So while leveling, usually adds X to damage, usually does the most amount of damage, because all the scaling like percentage comes from the skill tree, while usually adds comes from the items like weapons and quivers. Now buying a res ring. What is a res ring? A res ring is just a ring that has a very high amount of elemental resistance that you can pop on during leveling, and it will help you carry through the acts as well as it will reduce the elemental damage that you take. So it's not just for mapping, but even during the acts, if you have very low resistance, like say 20 or 30, you'll die a lot, right? Anything that hits you, you'll take a lot of damage and you'll die. So it's important to have somewhere around 70 all res, near cap res, even during the acts, during the later acts. So over here I've included, the search terms that you can use to buy a nice res ring. You can buy 1 or 2 of these, and over here you can see I've added something called empty prefix modifiers. Okay, so that lets you craft an additional modifier. Like when you buy the res ring, all resistance is a suffix and life is a prefix. So since we're a lightning arrow build, you can craft added lightning damage. So this is a nice way to get a ring that has an offensive as well as a defensive capability. So this is the kind of leveling experience that you can expect. The clear is very good, but when doing bosses you may die a couple of times, but that's to be expected with a leveling build.
Just like the street lights lit this town, like a fire in a blaze, gotta burn it down. Can't be afraid to leave this out. We got this far, don't know how. I see danger in your eyes. They know we'll burn down the night. Coming just like the sunrise. You know that we gonna let it rain. Tonight we gonna let it rain. Tonight we gonna let it rain. Just like the sunrise, we gonna let it rain. Just like a spark that's breaking out. Can't make a stop, can't turn back now. We know that there's no room for doubt. No, we can't turn back now. I see danger in your eyes. They know we'll burn down the night. Coming just like the sunrise. You know that we gonna let it rain. Tonight we gonna let it rain. Tonight we gonna let it rain. Just like the sunrise, we gonna let it rain.
Stand your ground. Triumphant at last. Withstand the siege. Your destination is more dangerous than the journey.
If you do wish to continue with lightning arrow, you can check out some of these endgame uniques that are very useful for mapping. So the first thing we have is Void Fletcher, which gives us more elemental damage, and it triggers Void Shot, which is like a secondary skill. It also gives us some resistance and energy shield. The other one is Hiri's Ire, which is a very standard for cold bow builds, actually used on Ice Shot and things like that. But we can also apply it to this build because it gives us added cold damage with bow attacks. The last one is Hiri's Truth, which is a kind of a newer amulet which has a lot of crit. So it has up to 50% crit strike multi, which is very useful, and it also gives you a very high level 30 precision, which improves your hit chance and your crit chance. And it also makes precision, very cheap in terms of aura stacking. Some interesting endgame flasks are mentioned over here. We have Dying Sun, which gives you 2 additional projectiles. We have Adziri's Promise, which basically gives you an additional elemental damage as chaos damage. And then we have Rumi's Concoction, which gives you armor plus chance to block attacks. All of the uniques mentioned in these pages are not required for leveling, but in case you want to continue with the build and do early maps with it, you can use these to boost your power and defense. So that will be all for today. I hope you enjoyed this short guide. And until next time, stay sane, Exile.